I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeoman,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Corn, here, Lehman,
Here.
Underwood.
Here. Approval of the agenda. We have a blue sheet and a new item. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion with the addition of the blue sheet.
And item I, item I included too.
And I will also add item I, which is per diem discussion.
Any support? Support. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Do
Opposed?
you have roll call on that one?
Is that a roll call?
We don't.
No, okay.
Public comment. Tyler?
You missed conflict of interest.
Oh, conflict of interest. Right. Anybody have a conflict of interest on anything tonight?
Can I just ask the policy on this? Is it like a township where the other board members vote whether they decide it's a conflict? Or is it just where a board member can declare for themselves and then?
Declare.
Okay. And you are able to, on a following action item or something, if you didn't realize until after the discussion that you're at a conflict, can you remove yourself at that time, or does it have to be done at the beginning of the discussion?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Before the vote.
Well, before the discussion.
All right. That's a good question. Actually. That's good. Now we're up to public.
No conflicts.
We did conflict. There's no conflicts.
Okay.
Now we're up to public comment.
Any person may make an advanced appointment with the board regarding road commission topics for a regular or special meeting in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. And if appointment is made, the topic will be an agenda item. The following applies to public comments. Please state his or her name and address. Topic must be relevant to the road commission. Individuals are allowed to speak once for up to 3 minutes on a single topic, which may be extended by the chair. A group addressing the board requires a designated spokesperson who may speak up to 10 minutes. The board will not act on any item from the public that is not on the agenda.
Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to action items. Item 6A, Bill.
Oh, I'm up.
First.
What's that quick? Well, happy New Year, everybody. It's good to see you all. You want to see some new faces? Welcome. Hello. I should be welcoming you. I guess. Okay, so for those who don't know me, I'm Bill Zip with OHM Advisors, and we are your consultant team for the Boardman River crossing. Now it's become environmental assessment in accordance with the Federal Highways National Environmental Protection Agency, NEPA regulations. There are some hoops to go through to officially initiate that process. I'll go through that a little bit later, but what I thought I'd do is bring everybody up to speed with the project. And for those that are unfamiliar, this is the project as it was as we ended the Pell. We had a recommended alternative or a locally acceptable alternative, and we called it the Hartman-Hammond alternative. And it started at Keystone, crossed the valley over the river, connected to Hartman at Cass, and continued over to US 31. We developed this alignment after discarding up 2 other alignments to the south. The Sabin Dam alternative and the Cass Road alternative, those were discarded for many reasons. I don't think I need to go into those if you want to ask questions. But the over at the west end, we essentially punted. We didn't evaluate that because it wasn't the purpose of this study. The purpose of the study was to determine if a new crossing was needed, where would it be? So that's what we did. There's where it should be. Our logical termini is Keystone and US 31, and we had some engineering challenges over here that we knew we could resolve and discuss during the environmental assessment process. That's where we're at now. So just for, can I stop and ask any, if there are any questions at this point? I'm trying to bring you up to speed. That was pretty quick, but Ms. Corn, you saw some of this.
I have a pretty significant understanding of this project. Yeah.
Okay, so let me move on to the environmental assessment, where we're at now. We're in the, actually, we're in the preliminary engineering aspect of it, my favorite part, where we can do alignment alternatives and design efforts in a preliminary fashion to determine impacts and costs. And so we're continuing this same concept, but we have two alternatives that we're on. I just show the other scheme. It's pretty colors and you'll love it. Okay, so this is now the Hartman-Hammond alternative. I've broken it up into 3 segments. The east segment that crosses the river, the center segment that basically is along the existing Hartman Road, and the west segment, which has 3 variants on how to connect to US 31 for various reasons. Over on this side, you see a yellow and a purple alternative, or magenta, whatever you like. We felt it important to evaluate what it would do going straight across from Cass to Keystone, straight across. Simplest type of work. We figured it would be the lowest cost, but we felt it was important as a consultant to do that. What we ended up finding is that it totally impacted a significant business, several businesses down in this, one of the brewery, and in this alternative. So, we shoved it a little further north. You can't see this on here, the black lines. The road commission owns a strip of property right through here. And so we looked at an alignment that takes advantage of that and avoids impact to Leo's Market and the brewery. I call it the brewery, but there are several businesses in that corner. So our purple alternative is the one we're looking at significant. We have 2 alternatives in there, but we're looking at that purple alternative as more realistic. From a bridge perspective, our partner WSP is the bridge engineer. They're doing it's called a type, size, and location at TSNL, which is an accepted term for preliminary bridge alternative analysis. They're analyzing several different types of bridge for this crossing. As you know, this is going to be a lot more, it's going to be a pretty expensive bridge. So what we're looking at is trying to find ways to minimize costs. And our goal is to minimize impacts in this. This is the sensitive area of the crossing right here. It's where the park comes through, and there are forested wetlands. There's other wetlands in here. So we're trying to minimize the impact. That's why we're looking at a high bridge and with minimal piers. Longer spans, fewer piers. They're looking at various alternatives. We're looking at a hybrid alternative, which potentially could have that long span segmental type construction just in the river valley where we need it. And then beyond that, at the ends, we're looking at something more traditional, more piers, less cost. So we're evaluating that. That's all going to come out in the TSNL study that basically kicked off in the last month. All right, moving away from the east segment. The center segment is pretty standard. It's got some grade issues. So there's going to be, the slope stake line goes out pretty far because we're expanding to a 5-lane roadway in here. You can see the dotted, well, maybe you can't see, there's dotted lines here to represent the slope stake line. And there are some right of way acquisition in here because of that. Moving over to the fun part, we're evaluating 3 different variants on how to connect to US 31. We've had some preliminary conversations with MDOT, showed them some of these alternatives a while ago. We're refining them. The northern one with the red, we call it the McRae Hill alternative, connecting to McRae Hill. There are some significant grade issues right here. The buildings, the IRS building, the MDOT TSC building, they're on a high level. They're pretty high relative to Hartman down here. Just as a US 31's on a pretty significant downgrade. I don't know if you can picture it. It's actually a 5% downgrade. There's some flat areas. Specifically, there's a flat area here. There's a flat area down here. That's why Hartman Road was meant like that. Because there were significant challenges in here. There's a very large cell tower down here, just near the IRS building up. So it's likely we're gonna be putting a wall. Our alternative for this will be putting a wall in this area, disconnecting Hartman, the old piece of Hartman Road here because of the grade issues. And again, I indicated that on a downgrade, we have to flatten it out.
Yeah.
Because we got trucks going 50 miles an hour down the hill, they gotta stop. In the winter, we can't do that. So we have to have a flat area. So there's significant cuts here, significant fills here. So there's some engineering challenges with the McCray Hill alternative. I'll go all the way down to the south. This Silver Pines alternative is one of the ones that you saw in the previous one. When we got into it, we realized we have a significant downgrade. So you can see that this is even more significant of a cut and a fill. I've got some details that I can show, but and this alternative has some wetland impacts. We're going through the bison farm as well, so there's some right-of-way issues to deal with on this one. So given the vertical challenges along this corridor, we recognize that there is a flat area in here. So we call this a midline alternative, where we're connecting to US 31 with virtually no grade change on US 31. Those are the three midline. Those are the three variants that we have that we're gonna keep them going all the way through. We're gonna evaluate impacts. We're gonna evaluate costs. Jason, you had a question?
Yeah, actually, if we were to use the middle option, we would still be then basically turning off the connection to 31 from Hartman, wouldn't we? I mean.
Well, we still have local access issues here.
Okay.
We can't disconnect with this.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't. We have to leave that connection in at least. If we discontinue this, if we lose that road here, we have to manage the apartment complex, the TSC buildings. They have a back door. They currently have 2 access points, so we got to maintain those 2 access points. So
that brings me back to favoring the northernmost.
McCray Hill alternative.
Yeah.
It's got a higher cost, but we can deal with it. I was very stunned when we met with NDOT on the first meeting we had with them to show them the vertical changes. I thought they'd say, no way, a 10, 15-foot cut and a 15-foot fill, there's no way you can manage that. Can you imagine building that under traffic? So they were not stunned by that. They said, well, it's a temporary situation. If it improves the permanent, then if we need to do it, then we need to do it. So, and the vertical changes on Silver Pines and McCray Hill, they have issues. This has its own issues because we're going through the bison farm, and it avoids a wetland impact over around this area, but still there's issues to deal with. Okay, so these are the details. I won't go into them very far, but I wanted to show this is the east segment. And it's hard for you to see this. I apologize. We have the blue straight through alignment. Then we have this purple, red, whatever that goes through here. You can see this orange strip right here. That's your property. And we've been able to develop a vertical and horizontal alignment that avoids impacts to Leo's Market and avoids significant impact. It doesn't affect their driveway, their parking area, their access. It might, depending on how we acquire right of way, we may avoid right of way, or we take small strips if you want a uniform piece. But there's evaluations to deal with. I just wanted to show you the significant vertical that we're dealing with. The vertical change. This is like 70-some feet. I think we pretty much showed that before, but one of the things that we hadn't really evaluated was what it does to Hartman. You can see this is the existing ground up here. It's on a relatively steep downgrade. It's 5.7%. We were matching that, but because we need this is Cash Road down here. Because we need that flat area for stopping, we have to push the alignment to the west. And what that does is, we're going to have these are 5-foot grids, so there's 12, 15 feet of cut there. And again, that's difficult. The beauty of that is, and we knew this coming up. We kind of knew it. We didn't do as much here, but we assessed the impacts that we're showing now are no worse than what we showed in the PAL. So there's some total takes here. And our alternative, as you see, the alternative goes a little further north, so we have to shove the road up a little bit to the north. We're looking at a roundabout alternative here as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the east end. And this is the Silver Pines Road alternative. And what I wanted to show here was the significant Silver Pines. Oh, this is the road. Silver Pines is the midline. No, this is Silver Pines. Goes all the way down to existing Silver Pine. And there's some wetland areas in here. There's a water crossing. We have some great issues to deal with. You can see. Let's see.
You're not gonna get away from that.
What's that?
You're building in it, you're building to a hill, you're not gonna
Yes.
get away.
Yeah, no, we can't get away from it. There's a significant hill up here. We actually, well, no, this is the midline alternative. Let me show the midline alternative. It's a drastic difference. You can see similar alignment through here. It goes further north, avoids the wetland impacts down in this area. But you can see here's where's the intersection? The intersection's up here. We're virtually at the same grade. I have a profile for US 31, but they didn't plot it for me. That's but we are at grade at US 31. So that's the beauty of that. Oh, here it is. There it is, right here. They did plot it. You can see there's virtually no change. Okay. This is McCray Hill alternative, Jason's favorite. And I do have on this one, no, I don't have the McCray Hill. I don't have the profile of US 31. But if you recall on the Silver Pines, when we were trying to flatten it, there was a huge cut to the south and a fill to the north. And that's exactly what we're facing in this situation. What can I say about this one? The cell tower's right here, the IRS building is right here. They're both real, well, the cell tower's right at grade here, but we have to raise up and get to US 31. And this is real high. And so we're talking about a wall in here, and that'll maintain access. Well, that'll maintain the condo development in this area. We continue to connect to McCray Hill Road, which there's some talk about McCray Hill going away, but we're maintaining that connection for now. We have some challenges up in here. This driveway goes down right now, so we're making it higher. So we have some challenges right here. Might be some driveway relocations for this. Well, I talked briefly about Old Hartman connection to US 31. We have to maintain that because of the backdoor access to the condo, the backdoor access to the this facility right here with IRS and the TSC building, as well as the cell tower. But we are not, we're cutting it off it will not connect to our new roadway. Access will be only in the back, but we have to maintain access to that cell tower.
But there's a signal on 31, right?
Well, we're looking at a roundabout alternative here or a traffic signal alternative. Look at them both.
With the three options, and they're
I think there's
meeting 31 north, are there any that are absolutely prevented from having a traffic signal that you just couldn't put one in because of the proximity to anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think we'll be able to put a signal in at either one of the locations.
Because we've already moved away from airport by quite a stretch from the old McCray to where the new McCray would come out.
So potentially a roundabout,
Potentially,
but it could have a signal alternative.
yes, we're gonna look at both of those. And we've taken traffic counts, and we're gonna, obviously, there's no turning here, there's no roadway there, but we have an idea of how many people are wanting to go north and south, so we'll take those traffic counts.
Is this opening up on US 31 where it comes down in a slope?
Yeah, this is a significant downgrade
Okay.
going down the hill.
So if you put a roundabout there, I mean, that if the traffic is coming down.
Well, we're gonna flatten this.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna flatten this area. We have to, and that's part of the challenge. What I don't have is a profile that shows what it does here, but it's similar to the Silver Pines Road.
Get to back that grade off.
It's similar to the Silver Pines profile that shows a significant cut
Okay.
up here, 15 feet, 10 feet of fill down here, so it's quite dramatic. But again, as I said, I was stunned that MDOT they weren't, no way. Okay, so any questions on what I've shown so far? I have a little bit more to talk about, but
Is it possible to get a digital copy of these options? Just maybe so I
Absolutely,
can catch up
yes,
a little
you know.
bit, and
We'll get them shipped to us and we'll get them out to you guys.
that would be great. The maps help me.
the big one that you're probably most interested in is this one. I would imagine, yeah. I mean, this tells the whole
Yeah,
story.
and this shows your limits really roughly of what you're talking about for flat.
Right.
So the red for the McRae, the Silver Pine or the midline one doesn't need flattening because that's at the flat portion of the hill. And the blue is for the Silver Pines intersection. So there's a lot of flattening that needs to happen for those two.
Yeah, we
They're
haven't
on
even,
such a steep grade.
we haven't really looked at how to maintain traffic yet. We know that would be a challenge. We likely won't do that at this point. It's a detailed design issue. There could be some detours involved. Can you imagine? Where would we put that truck traffic if we detoured it? So we may not detour.
Improve McRae itself
As a bypass, you mean?
as a bypass.
As a temporary bypass?
Sure, it's enough work that we're doing that it'd be worth doing.
MDOT doesn't like to detour their traffic onto local roads. They don't like to do that. But at times, I mean, there are not a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
Keystone is an opportunity to, get around. But then again, the locals usually get some sort of, improve that road because it'll fall apart if you put, 10,000 trucks on it a day or whatever. I don't quote me on that.
But with our project, we're gonna have to do it anyway, so.
So right now you're entering into the environmental study phase of this,
Yes,
right?
yes. We've been meeting with MDOT because MDOT, and this is something I wanted to talk about, just to make you aware. MDOT has been under scrutiny from federal highways on their local agency projects for many years. And the feds have come down hard on them just the beginning of this year. They've changed their requirements for reporting. And their biggest issue is the 12-month window for an environmental assessment. They require that any environmental assessment must be complete in a 12-month timeframe. That clock hasn't started yet because there's a very formal initiation process. We first have to get them to concur with our classification of this project as an environmental assessment. The NEPA rules, there are 3 steps. There's a categorical exclusion, which are generally low cost, low impact type projects that categorically fit these requirements, and they require a lot less of evaluation. Then there's the environmental impact statement, which when there's lots of controversy or there are significant impacts to a project, then you elevate. That's the high end. Then there's the middle ground, the environmental assessment, where sometimes you're not really sure. But in this case, we know what the impacts are. We know they're not significant, but it doesn't classify as a categorical exclusion. So we're going with the environmental assessment, the EA process. But now MDOT and the feds are requiring, MDOT has agreed to follow their procedures for their local agency projects. And there has to be a formal classification determination. We have to make that formal is a big form that we have to fill out, send it, they concur. Then we have to initiate the project. There's another formal document. We've been through that initiation process before. We're very comfortable with it, but this new classification step was one that we didn't know about until January. So it's a 12-month window is very formal, but it won't start until the initiation starts. So we're not there yet. But the beauty of this is we're already doing a good portion of the work. So when we get initiated, and we start all the evaluation of impacts and the preparation of the environmental assessment document, we'll have a lot of this work done. And that's in accordance with
More
the
predictable
procedure.
timeline for the end.
It'll help us with the timeline at the end.
Do we have an estimate of when it starts?
It should be in March. I'm guessing it would be around March. It takes time for us to, we're at a point where all we have to do is fill out a form. It's a a lengthy form, but all we have to do is fill that form out, get them to concur, and it takes a couple weeks for them to agree, then we have to prepare the initiation document, that takes a couple weeks. So my conservative estimate is early March, I would think.
The environmental assessment part, is it going to be looking just at the bridge option, or I was under?
No, it's the whole
It's gonna look
project.
at the
The whole
other
project.
alternatives.
And all of these alternatives will be evaluated within the document. Even this straight alternative will be evaluated as well.
In terms of what kind of bridge we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, I mean, the type of bridge might differ. I had a detailed question for the bridge engineers, and one of the reasons we're not really figuring this yellow alignment is gonna go very far is because the difference between a straight across bridge and the curved alignment is very insignificant. They're telling us so there's no reason to take a business when we don't need to.
Right.
So,
At the end of the EA, are they going to propose which one of the three ending alternatives has to be?
we'll come out with a recommended alternative, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And they'll concur on that. The end document is called FONSI. It's finding of no significant impact. That's the federal highway rule for moving forward. And that allows you to start your detailed design and to start your property acquisition, which both of those are going to be significant.
But that process is what's likely going to choose your alternative at the end then?
The impacts the cost and the impacts will determine which of these, specifically these three.
And you don't think any of the three are just out of the question then, as far as the environmental?
Well, I have my thoughts. I have my own opinion, but we're evaluating them together as if they are valid alternatives. Through the process, we'll flush out which ones lose, like we did with Cass Road. And I mean, when we first started this PAL, we thought there's no way this is going to work because there's an existing crossing down here.
Mhm.
But as we got into it, Cass Road had very significant challenges. The impacts to the NER, the Robbins property, the wetland issues, all led us to get away from that in the Save Dam. Similar will happen over here. Things will flush out. Costs, right-of-way impacts. You know, that alternative that builds a wall, that's going to be a significant wall. And then, you know, maintaining that wall in the future is an issue too.
Is there one that has the largest amount of right-of-way issues, or as far as potential issues for property owners?
That's a good question, and I'm not prepared to answer that right at this point. We're still early in the process. And the differences will be here.
Right.
It's, you know, this one won't have as significant an impact on the bison farm.
Right, because.
And there's some challenges with access down here as well, if we go down here. Maintaining, this is very close to the intersection, so we have to realign if that even works out. We're not even sure. That little tail we show, we're not even sure that's gonna work. All of that will be evaluated as part of the environmental.
Isn't that hill considered what MDOT calls a view shed, and aren't there restrictions on what you can do with changing those view sheds as far as for MDOT approval on projects?
Well, when you talk, I'm not familiar with that term view shed. I'm not.
I don't know, it's like you come down a hill and it's pretty. They call it a view shed.
Aesthetic.
There's one in Benzie, this
Certainly.
is a view shed.
Certainly, you know.
You can see the bay, right, when you're coming down and it welcomes you to the area, and I thought
You'll see the bay from the bridge. once you
Right?
see
I thought MDOT was restrictive on things like the, you know, drastic changes in elevation to those because they're preserving them. It's more of a preservation type thing.
I'm not aware of anything like that. Obviously, we would, site distance is our primary concern. Aesthetics of the area would, you know, significant cuts and fills. We're not gonna leave steep slopes. We're gonna cut them back as much as we possibly can. To make it pleasant. You're kind of interesting. We've been talking about, some sort of, you know, we're putting we're planning for paths on both sides of this bridge. Pathways, separated pathways, for bikes and pedestrians. And there's a lot of talk about making a little bump out in the area to allow people to they can't drive their car into it, obviously, because that would be not good. But people that are walking or biking can pull over and get a nice seat. So it's something, you know, it's a possibility. Well, those things will be vetted out for the public, at the public meetings and stuff like that. We'll identify that kind of stuff. We're going to engage the public in the aesthetics of this bridge, because this is a significant impact visually to this corridor. There's nothing there now, and we're putting a relatively substantial bridge in here. So it's going to change the look of you know, paddlers and on the path, people walking the path. It's going to change things. It's up in the air, but it's big. I mean, it's long. The longer we make it, the deeper the beam's got to be. So, you know, there's going to be some aesthetics, some visual changes. We're going to engage the public on types of form liners to treat the piers and the bridge itself, the deck itself. So that's the project.
And the FOS has to be approved before we can engineer.
The FONSI. The FONSI has to, yes, the FONSI has to be approved before we can start detailed design. And in fact, the feds won't sign the FONSI until there's until the funding is in place for the next phase. And that's something that I wanted to bring up to the board, just make sure you're aware. We are preparing a funding plan, which will include options. How can we get there? We're going to present that to the staff within the next week or so. We have our partner, WSP, has a significant impact on, or they've got a lot of really talented people that look for grants all over the country. They've got some very significant grants around the country, and we're looking for assistance in that respect. We've got to get a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you know, our funding plan will have to identify whether it's really a chance we're not going to be able to build all this at once. So we're going to have to potentially phase it, you know, build a certain part of it first, or build a bridge first, and then once you build a bridge, you got to build the rest of it, and that kind of thing. But it depends on how we can come up with the money. One thing I want to make sure you're aware of is we need the county and the county road commission as partners in this. You know, we just met with MDOT today, as a matter of fact, and they are interested in being a partner on this. A little bit more than they were on the Pell. They were kind of on the outside during the Pell, but now we brought their environmental people in, and they've encouraged us to go through the region to get move this up. We'd like to eventually get this into at least into the governor's office to make them aware, you know, that this project is here. And you know, this is not MDOT's project, but it has MDOT impact, as well as it's a regionally important project. So the funding, it would be much more difficult without MDOT as a partner, as a team member, and they're willing to be along with us, give us guidance so far. But I wanted to just make sure you're aware that we need the board. We need the board and the county to be a partner in this as well.
Bill, I appreciate you giving us a sense of where MDOT's at. I mean, obviously for them, it's now real, and we've actually gone through the process.
Yes.
We've got millions of dollars into this already.
Yes.
And so, I mean, they're taking it seriously now, which is really good. And as far as your part, finding us money, that's going to be probably one of the most important parts. It doesn't happen without it. So.
We're actually in the process of preparing a grant application for a RAISE grant, which is due in the end of February, and that it's a planning type grant, and hopefully if we get it, we might be able to fund the design. You know, if we can fund the design, then we can move right into it. That's only a wish, you know, and we're going to keep our eyes open for opportunities, and hopefully we'll find them. But we collectively got to get legislative support, MDOT support, anywhere we can get it. So call Mr. The Secretary of Transportation who lives down the street, see what you can do. That's the off-color comment.
Not a bad
Not
idea.
serious.
It certainly was.
Not a bad idea.
Anything else? Any questions? I'm loving this project. I'm enjoying my time with it. This is a career project for me, I'll tell you.
I'm glad to see you from your report.
afterwards.
No, I enjoy it. It's a nice travel. You guys are fun people to be with. Pleasure to meet you. I remember seeing you before.
You were at my board presenting.
Yes,
Yeah.
your support for the project was very valuable during the PAL. For the Parks and Rec people were very instrumental in providing
It's
comment.
sort of a family project for us, so we appreciate everything you're doing, and it's exciting to get to join this board and see things moving forward. And I remember reading something along the lines, and I can't remember exactly, it's either the longest county-owned bridge in Michigan or in the United States.
It'll be the longest locally owned bridge in Michigan. One of, and there are several others around the country locally owned, but it's up there in the top 10.
Yeah.
I think what we talked about, it'll be probably the 8th longest bridge period in Michigan. So
It will be a game changer for the region.
Yes, it will. Not just the bridge, but you know, the future. MDOT is telling us, look, you gotta look beyond just this project. You can't close your eyes to it. So we're gonna be talking about, you know, or not really formally at this point, but we can't do this. So, anything else? I'm pleased that you're pleased. Okay? We got your way, yeah.
Thank you.
Am I too much of a disturber? Brian, thanks for your patience. You're a little past your normal time, but you're up next for Mayfield.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
oh, okay.
I have you both down here, so I'm just presenting.
Okay. I didn't realize it was me. Yeah,
You can't have my
oh, can I?
secret
I
document.
got your good jokes in there. I think we're progressing well on some projects that we have coming along. Our Heron Road, remember a while back after presented. Appreciate your support on that. Our second project is Ray Road. It's a gravel road. And it's, I did talk with the engineer today that's working on it. He's developing a plan. The road is really bad. It takes on a lot of water. It gets saturated, it gets ruddy, and it's a problematic area. It needs to be filled in, and some culverts put up and some drainage off to the side so that it fills with ice and water. So we're hoping to see some progress on that one pretty soon. We'd like to build them both this year, and then also we're starting our planning for 24 as well. We've got into the pavement management program part that the townships can do, and we're looking at our overall program. So the one issue, John would know more about this than me, is North Gray Road. The county graciously came in and practiced some grading on that road last fall. Had some new graders come in. The one thing that it did do though is it had a fairly decent gravel base. It pulled in the topsoil and mixed in black dirt on fairly decent gravel, and that's been a little bit of a hazard. And John, you might want to explain that more, but there's been some difficulty with people getting out, and it more or less kind of stuck in the new material that was brought back in. So I think what we're hoping is that can be re-looked at again, especially when the freeze thaw cycles start hitting. I realize it's been a constant one almost all winter, but when the traditional freeze thaw cycles start hitting that, we think we're going to have some serious flooding problems. And did you have anything else to add onto that?
You can, if you drive down the road, when there's no snow on the road, you can basically see where the black dirt is really thick. A number of the issues. We've had people go in a ditch. We've had people almost not be able to make it through, even 4-wheel drives. So I know it's been a bad winter, but it has never really been it's firm until it froze. And it's been bad. There's spots that are really bad. That needs to be looked at.
Are you saying this, is this from our ditching?
Yeah, yeah.
So we had a training session
Okay.
where we used the section of Ray Road they're talking about for our guys to go out and learn how to grade better.
Okay,
And so I'm sure Rick or Jay,
I'm aware of it.
they'll go out there and they'll make sure, but when spring comes around, we will address fixing.
And there's a couple spots that are.
We're not
that are
gonna
gonna be
leave
bad.
No, no. Yeah, so we're all good. We're gonna, I did talk with the engineers. We're gonna meet probably within a couple of weeks before our township meeting, get an update on the South Ray Road, so on there. And
That one, we would probably do right out of pocket on that one.
Okay.
Because I know we're gonna use all our money on Heron Road. And that's what the board wants to do.
Okay. And you're talking how far down on that section? You're talking from.
That first quarter mile,
Just where that real
where
bad
that bad issue is. right
ditch is
there.
on the east side?
Yeah.
Okay.
for my part, I appreciate the township. I mean, you guys, you want to put your money where, where your needs are too.
And
So that's
we
good.
got 20 some houses down that road
Yeah.
now, and I understand it. They knew what the road was when they moved in there, but we still need to take care of it. It's an issue.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, with that, that's all the appointments, consent calendar.
The consent calendar is used to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together without discussion. Requests by any person present to remove any item from the consent calendar for full discussion as an agenda item are automatically respected. The action noted in parentheses for all items remaining on the consent calendar are approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. The manager recommends the following items be adopted. 1, minutes. 2, payroll. 3, accounts payable. 4, financial reports. And 5, reports and communications.
Does anybody wish to remove an item from the consent calendar?
Yes, I would like to remove the engineering report.
You're talking about the staff reports?
Yeah.
So that's under reports, communications, so
Under, number 5.
Any others? Anybody from the audience?
we move that we approve the consent calendar minus item number 5. Is roll.
Roll call. Okay.
Chasm,
Yes.
Corn,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes. That brings us to items removed from the consent.
I'm sorry, yes, sorry.
Yeah, items removed from the consent calendar.
Getting ahead of
Number 5.
All right, yeah, so the only reason I asked for the engineering report to be removed was I just want an update from you, Wayne, on a couple of projects that are listed. One is the one for under state and federal aid projects, Cedar Run Road, Harris Road to North Long Lake Road. It doesn't provide any information as to what kind of project that's going to be.
Okay, that is it's a preventative maintenance project. So we're going to be doing a chip seal for reducing reflective cracks with the HMA overlay on that.
Okay. And then the other one was a 2021 general fund carryover project. Can you just give us an update on the Silver Lake Road, South Airport Road intersection improvements? What is it that we will be doing there?
Yes. So that one is, we're looking at trying to increase the capacity of that intersection. Evenings are pretty well backed up for the South Airport Road folks heading out of town. So we're developing a dual left turn from South Airport Road onto Silver Lake Road. With that, then we're also improving and doing a complete rebuild of the signals system there. We're going with a box span. So we have to get a lane widening in on South Airport, also some lane widening on Silver Lake. the new signals, new guardrail in and around that area.
What's the box span? What is?
So our older signals would have a diagonal strand across the intersection, and you'd have your lights kind of staggered on through. The newer designs are all box span. So now as you come up to your intersection, your lights are at the far end of the intersection. It improves your sight distance on that, and the entire intersection then is kind of shown with the box span.
Appreciate that. Those are the only clarifications or information.
So you're talking about South Airport Road. Like, you drive past Sam's Club and it ends
Yep.
in Silver Lake, that's what you're talking about,
Yes,
a widening there.
it'll be, we'll go down to Silver Lake intersection. So from about, was it Stonebrook?
Stone Ridge subdivision.
Yes, that area there, we expand the road to develop two left turn lanes and a right turn lane. And then you have, well, actually it'd be a dual right turn lane, through lane. And then you've got your other lane heading back the other direction. So we'll have 4 lanes right there. But 2 of those lanes will when the signal goes, 2 lanes will be able to make a left turn. So we're able to get that traffic out off of South Airport and improve the capacity of that intersection.
So on the Silver Lake part, when they're dual left turn lanes, then we would be widening that part of Silver Lake Road as well to accommodate the traffic, because right now it's one lane and then it branches.
It's one lane and then.
Right, so we've got several hundred feet there that we have
Right.
to widen in order to accept both those lanes turning into there. That, and then we also had, we got some wash issue, some erosion issue with the ditch there. So we've got a concrete curb and gutter kind of running up through there. So that'll help improve and take care of our stormwater through that intersection.
And we have enough right of way on both those roads to accommodate.
On those roads, yes, we are right now, we have a little bit of an additional engineering that we requested them to do. So Silver Lake, as you approach the intersection that'd be from the north, it gets pretty narrow right there as you're coming in. And we have a storage bay that for left turn movement for Silver Lake to make a left turn on South Airport, that's really tight. And so we wanted to get some additional capacity there. So they did the design up. That's pushing us to get a grading easement. So we'll be approaching the residents there in order to obtain a grading easement at that one. But that would be the only right of way that we need there.
Because it's wetlands all along there, right?
It's wetlands over on the on one side, yes. So we try to avoid those as much as possible.
Right,
So
yeah, that area is not far from where I live in my daily drive. And that is a precarious area in the winter to turn.
mhm.
The
Yeah.
traffic backs up quite a bit and I probably see an accident every other week on my way home, I would say. Pretty significant one, so that's interesting.
While we have this item open, just to drop back on the okay, the 3 mile South Airport. What are we doing there again? I just refreshed my memory.
Or 3 mile and
Yeah, 3 mile South Airport to Parsons, and then yeah, what are we doing there again?
So we had a project there on 3 mile from South Airport up to Parsons. And then that road we had done an overlay on, and that's one of the projects that we are working on getting closed out with the federal aid.
So just so I'm clear on the process here, since we don't represent districts on this board, we're sort of at large. How do you communicate with your villages or townships or city? Because there's significant impact to residential areas on several of these. I would say Herkna and West High. how do you communicate? Do you go to the township boards and present, or how people that are elected to represent the people that actually live in the townships sometimes don't hear about these projects, and then they feel a disconnect, like how do we not know that because that's a really significant area where you're talking about where Stone Ridge is, and there's Silver Farms is right there on Rawlahsee. I mean, it's a lot, right? A lot of residences. So what is your process that you go about once you have kind of decided you're going to do something to sort of let people know? How do you guys go about that here?
Well, depending on where or how the project originates from, if it's through the rural task force, we have public meetings with the rural task force or the small urban. When the other meetings are in here, we will start to develop that list, and we try to share that list with the townships at our annual meeting that we host with the townships to give information out there. We also have that type of information posted on our website on there. So.
And you send a bulletin or something to like a township supervisor or
Typically,
planner?
We host the MTA meeting in May, and that's when we talk about everything that's happening. But now, as part of these committee or these township meetings, as I'm going out, I'm presenting at each one of them the map of all the projects happening this year.
Because you have an idea of everything basically for a whole year, right? You're not kind of, I mean, unless it.
Well, townships can bring up a new project
Right.
any day. I mean, so yes, but once they're added, we then put it on the map. And then they're there. And the townships also have the ability to go on to our GIS system, which we've given them all a license for it, to go in and look and see if there's anything happening in their township. Because as a township licensee, they can only see what township they're working in. So if they're working for Garfield Township, they can only see Garfield Township roads.
And we're going to continually work on improving our communications. It's something that
Well,
we're
I'm wondering if it would be helpful
going to talk about,
if
strategic planning.
our assignments that we have, if it would be helpful to the staff who has a full-time job doing all of that. We may not represent districts, but we now have all been assigned townships. And we could at least make sure that the township board is aware, because you know what happens when somebody at 3 Mile and Potter Road is upset. Well, they're not gonna call they're gonna call their township or village or city. And if they feel that there was that communication, I think it would go a long ways in helping staff when people say, oh, well, we didn't have any idea that was gonna happen. And it kind of was a good process on the county board, and it seems like it would be a good process on the road commission to help engage and take some weight off of, Wayne is not gonna go to every township board meeting, neither is Brett, right?
Yeah. On every single one of them. So.
Yeah, but you're not there at all of them,
No.
but there's a lot, we will be at more than you, right? So we would be helpful.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah,
And
More than
Alan
one
last
per
year
town.
pushed heavily for a projects list. I think we can improve upon that this year with estimated date times and that kind of stuff. Because it was just a list, as I recall, last year.
Yeah.
And
I've thought we need to know more about what we're planning in the past little bit. And it's a process.
absolutely.
We're
Kind of wondering where you're at. in
the board members, I'm not sure in the past saw a lot of the exact what was going on, and we're getting more information about the forward thinking of what's happening at staff and engineering now than we have been.
Right, board members are not administrators or engineers, but we could help take some weight off of the staff by being the part that goes to a board meeting and listens to people. The one I see here that I think would need a lot of massaging would be the North Long Lake Road at Herkner. I personally drive what I call the Circle of Hell every day at Traverse City West, which would be the roundabout inside a roundabout filled with 16-year-old drivers and a double turn. So that's something where, that I love the way that you guys have been communicating with TCAPS, because we actually get texts as parents, heads up all the time. Herkner Road, Zimmerman Road, Long Lake Road, you know, and that's a really great communication method. So whoever's doing that here, kudos to that, because it's really good. But that's something that's going to affect all the parents, all the students, and West is a pretty big area. So just seeing something like that and just talking about it ahead of time, I think would go really far, and maybe the perception that a lot of people say, well, I never knew that was happening. I don't know.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, you're jumping ahead and you stole our thunder. But we'll be talking about those, and there's a reason why, and I'll share with you exactly why you've got that now.
Yes, and I'm glad to see it. And so those are just things, commissioners do very little. We set policy and let you guys do your jobs, right? But that is a role that a commissioner could play that would be helpful. And yeah, I'll be in East Bay Township. I might as well talk about, you know, what's going on at Potter Road or whatever. So just a thought on that we could be part of your process. That could be helpful. I myself have a day job working for a board. The last thing in the world I want to do is see one of my board members in my office ever, or, you know, any of that. But my board members play such a great role to help communicate out for us in our projects that we do. I'm the person applying and working for the Fonzies and going through all the engineering and stuff. They're the people that when people say, oh, we didn't know you were going to build next to us, they get to do that. So I think that would be a really beneficial thing for this board. And ever since I got appointed to the road commission, that's the #1 thing I would say I've heard from people, is to make sure you say that at the first meeting. There you go. And I will talk to East Bay Township.
Yeah, we need to move on. Any other
Move it back into the consent calendar.
in the back? Oh, yeah.
I'll make the motion to put the engineering report or approve.
Staff report.
Staff report.
I'll support it. Okay.
You can just do it.
I'll wait for Kylie. You ready?
Roll call?
You don't need to do it. This one does not yet.
We just need it all in favor.
those in favor?
Aye. Opposed?
That's
That moves us on to item D.
Right.
Asset management plan.
This, I'll just quickly cover this. This is the one that Carl brought up where we actually went over. We checked the records, we talked about it, but we never actually got a motion from the board. So what we're asking for is a motion to authorize the expenditure and make payments to the engineering firm, which helped us form the asset management plan that was submitted.
Your motion.
I'll make the motion.
Any additional discussion?
Just remind me, what's the manager's expenditure authority?
15,000.
And this was an additional 16,000.
No, the total went over the 15. I don't know exactly how much it went.
We were originally at 16,000. We did have the 2 small additions, so a total expenditure of $20,294.33.
So 5294 is what we're over your authority.
Yes.
Okay, and that's why, so I guess so we are making a motion to approve the payment of
Right.
16,000?
No, the additional, you already approved the 16,
Got it.
but it went over that.
All right, okay. And this is spending money, so it's a roll call. Any question?
Horn?
Yes.
Lehman?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Chasm?
Yes.
Underwood?
Yes. I know what that. I know exactly what that. Potential safety project list.
All right, now we got it.
Okay, so with us today is Assistant County Highway Engineer Derek Weichland. And Derek has put this presentation together and we'll go over these details. What we wanted to do is, as part of our process, is we want to bring potential safety projects and these projects that MDOT has a roll call or has a call for. We want to bring these to you beforehand so that we can garner your support, or if there are issues with it, we don't want to spend a lot of time on something that's not going to have your support as we go forward. Part of this is we need to get this out far enough ahead of time so that we can talk to you, we can then with your support, we can go forward, because we need to be making communication and having contact with property owners, with organizations, with groups, in order for their support to go forward on these safety grants. Last thing we ever want to do is put in for a safety grant, get it awarded to us, and then not be able to complete the project because we have something of either a lack of support or a right-of-way issue, and then have to turn that money back to the state.
Would you introduce this young man to us, Wayne?
Yes, so this is our Assistant County Highway Engineer, Derek Whiteman.
Please, welcome.
And so yeah, so we would get a black mark.
February to September.
All right. So Derek, I'll turn this over to you.
Right, so Wayne mentioned, I put together a list of potential safety projects for this year's safety call. Last year, it came out in February. Kind of soon it's probably gonna follow the same time as this year. We have to have our applications in May. And there are two types of funding. One is the high-risk rural road. If you go to the next slide. This is a pretty restrictive because it's based on types of roads you can use it on. It have to be in a rural area. And last year, the project is limited to $750,000 per project. The next type is the Highway Safety Improvement Program. And within this program, there's two types of funding, one for standalone projects like a roundabout or turn lane or something to that effect. And the other would be a systemic safety improvement like delineation or signal backplates or rumble strips, things like that, where you're going to spread it over many different roads for a long distance. And here's the map of our proposed projects we have. The yellow is a systemic project we have for traffic signal backplates at 7 intersections. And the reds are standalone projects of various types we'll get into here in a minute. First one is our North Long Lake at Herkner TC West High School intersection, affectionately referred to as the Circle of Death by Commissioner Korn. And
For the record.
basically what we're gonna do here is convert this into a single signal there at the Herkner intersection instead of having the two, and make that a box band signal. And the funding is a competitive process. Actually, I clarified it earlier. So we were competing against all the local agencies across the state for this fund. And they gauge that based on the time of return, which is the $400,000 estimate over the possible crash reduction due to this improvement we're making. So it's kind of like a predictive thing. We're actually using real data from crashes that occurred in the past to kind of show a pattern there that we're correcting. And this one is kind of would be tough because we need to get the high school to change their drive configuration before we go ahead and apply for this one.
That's their cost?
That changing their drive would be their cost.
Are there mechanisms for them to?
Now that you're not,
Okay.
I don't win any idea on that.
Not through a state or federal.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
That
Are
would-
there aware of it?
No, not yet. That's why I kind of want to get this ball rolling tonight before we start moving forward with, okay, if this is going to go tonight, then we wouldn't approach them. Leave it as is.
And then TOR, is that a ranking system?
That's the time of return I alluded to earlier with the
Time of returns.
estimate versus the possible reduction in crashes due to the improvement.
So you expect, what's the ratio then? What do you expect?
Usually the 10-year mark is very competitive throughout the state. So this is kind of right at that.
Okay. So it's 10-year.
Yep, that's kind of what the gauge they use to kind of make them competitive
Okay,
versus
so
the other
The
projects.
safety grants for the 400,000, and then we have what costs are ours?
The 400,000 would be the grant. That's what
And it would cover everything.
that would cover.
Does your agency provide the design for TCAPs? I understand they have to pay for the driveway reconfiguration, but they're not designing it also? Or does the road commission design that and offer that, or? you just say to them, you need to meet these parameters and redesign your driveway, right?
That would have to be part of our discussion with TCAPS onto that.
Yeah, they may decide to choose their own engineer.
That's
We
what
will
I-
have to approve any.
Yeah, we
any
can try.
configuration. It's subject to our approval regardless of which contract.
It
they
is.
hire. Yeah.
No, just for clarification, there is typically it's an 80-20 match on these, so we would have, we'd be matching this grant, so the grant's for 400,000, so we'd be doing what, another 80,000 into there or
So we
something.
will have some money invested in this.
Yes,
Can you envision the driveway at Herkner and creating a four-way
Correct.
light? What about all of the tribal property right there? Is there potential investment by the tribe? I know that they don't have to do like traffic studies and stuff on their properties, being a sovereign nation, but they typically are inclined to donate to road construction projects. Would there potentially be a tribal connection here because they?
there very well could be, and that would be something that, we would support. We do work with them on different projects now and again. And if that was something that they wanted to completely fund even, then that we would fully support that as well. Overall, we're looking at this is a safety issue. We're not comfortable with just ignoring it. So we gotta rip that Band-Aid off. We have to address it.
Does our match include the engineering costs that we have, for example? Okay.
Engineering is entirely separate. The grant is just for construction alone.
They have a significant density though in that project on Herkner.
Yeah,
I mean, and it will be, I guess it's moving forward now. We don't know because we don't get information about their projects really, but I'm just saying there might be potentially a trade-off there for some assistance with the traffic planning coming out of that. It's possible.
The next project is one of the systemic projects I alluded to earlier. We'd be retrofitting our signals that are currently box fans already that have signal heads in good condition from our asset management inspection last fall. We retrofit these with backplates. The picture kind of shows what the backplate would look like. Just draws more visibility to the light at night and during the daytime, makes it stand out a little bit better versus the background that's on. Those are fairly cheap.
We're 80-20 on this.
Yes.
Everything's 80-20.
The next project is probably the highest price tag of the ones we're gonna talk about is roundabout at 3 Mile Road and Potter Road. There's been quite a few angle crashes and rear end crashes there. It's got a price tag of 1.25 estimated currently with a competitive time of return.
Now, explain how this works into what we already did last year for that roundabout.
So this is Potter up there.
Oh, Potter and 3 Mile, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
I'm thinking of Potter and
Is this
Garfield.
like
My
South
apologies.
Creek subdivision or something
There's
else?
a sheep farm there. That's just.
There's a sheep farm on one side, there's works on one side. There's a pasture on the other side.
Right now, there's a blinking yellow light there. Is that
Yeah, that's one of the things we've already added. We've done countermeasures to avoid the angle crashes in the
Right,
past
right.
already. It hasn't really done anything, so.
We just put some stop signs up.
And
It's got 2 in each approach.
No, yeah, I know, but I mean, for 3 mile.
Forward,
So isn't this,
That doesn't really meet the warrants. The warrants look at if you've got approximately the same amount of traffic on the different directions, east-west versus north-south, then doing a 4-way stop, is recommended. But
Potter
where
doesn't have
we've
as much
got,
traffic, it's 3 miles south.
yeah, 3 miles south is, 3 miles got that major amount, and so it's traffic engineering it would be bad traffic engineering to go ahead and stop that just for that sole reason alone.
A lot of it is not in there.
What we have, as Derek mentioned, we've done incremental improvements and countermeasures. And as we do those and employ those, and then we don't get the desired results, we continue on. And this is a continuation of that. And so now here we are looking at a recommendation for a roundabout.
And if the cost exceeds the estimated cost of 1.2, and we run up just like we ran up at Potter and Garfield, then we just eat the difference.
Right. These grants have caps on them, unfortunately, and on that, so.
Next project is doing some slope flattening on Silver Lake Road between South Airport and Barnes. We've had a lot of run off the road, fixed object crashes and overturns out there. This would be kind of flattening the slopes where you can, where you got the right way to do so, and installing guardrail when you couldn't.
Oh, yeah.
Next one's the Zimmern Road. This will go from Panorama, just south of Panorama Drive up to Heritage. The curve to the south of Panorama, it's pretty developed along there. We wouldn't be able to realign that. We looked at doing a high friction surface treatment, which is basically an overkill chip seal, I guess, for lack of a better term. And that helps increase the friction between your tires and the roadway to help navigate the curve a little bit better. And we would try to realign the curve to the north, because we have a lot of room there. We could possibly realign that curve and make it a little bit flatter coming through there. But there would be some right of way talks we have to ensue before we'd put forth this project.
Now, that's literally your backyard, we said.
Literally my backyard. There was an accident right where the M and Zimmerman is last night that we stopped and helped the people. You know, it's a bad curve. It's a weird road. The main problem with that road is the high school. The insane amount of traffic going through there for the high school on a 2-lane road. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we often wondered, I've lived there a long time. We've often wondered if you could straighten out the curve. Seems very expensive. I don't know that it would have that much of a return for the consumers. I
estimate these high just to make sure that time of return is going to be within our.
Do you have some kind of data that I mean, having lived there a long time, there's a lot of accidents, but they're not really that bad because you're going slower through an S curve.
We've had 21 total crashes in the last 5 years. 2 of them have been serious injury crashes.
If we straighten it out, people are gonna be traveling faster
Well,
too.
that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting one. I don't
The
know.
estimated cost, does that include? Yeah, are there right of way
That's
acquisition?
going to include right away. Yeah, that's why it's so high.
Yeah, the farm has been there forever. They have some grapes planted right there. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting one. The thing about Zimmerman is it really probably needs to be widened. I hate to say that because I don't want to, but it's just such a significant flow of traffic through there.
That's one of our feeders.
Through roads, right? Yeah.
All right. That's an interesting one.
Next is our Secor Road at East Long Lake / Bass Lake intersection. This would be taking the hill down on the east leg of Secor at that intersection. There's pretty limited sight distance there if you're coming off of Bass Lake or East Long. That's kind of got a little bit higher time of return on. We're over our 10 years, 11, but there have been quite a few angle crashes there due to that limited sight distance.
Have we completed the road safety audit on that? Were we talking about a roundabout at Secor and Silver Lake Road?
Different
It's a
locations.
different location.
Different
I know, but
locations.
is that something that's still going forward? Is that
It's
being
still
road
going forward,
safety
yes.
audit?
MDOT will be administering that RSA.
Okay. So it has, okay.
There's a lot of accidents.
This is near the booms, right, when you're coming down?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a bad slope where you can't see.
The next one is Summit City in Walton. This is another vertical curve modification. They come in westbound on Walton, you got re-significant John Gray before you come down to Summit City where you got a stop condition and the site distance is also limited there. So we look to kind of modify the vertical curve on the south leg of Summit City Road to get better site distance for vehicles coming off of Walton.
This is where they're having their accidents, right? Since
Yeah, we've had a fatal out there, but it hasn't been a lot, but there's been enough that are serious.
Yeah, I've heard from Paradise Township.
Yep. I talked to a guy out there about a month ago about And our last one's North Long Lake Street. We're looking at doing a left turn lane for eastbound and westbound Long Lake Road and a right turn for westbound Long Lake onto Straight Road.
This is one of those, I think we need to step it up.
I think so.
Mhm.
We're talking about Moomers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we need to do more than just put a lane in there. We need to do something serious.
Yeah.
We got way too much new traffic out there. There's a lot of development going on along Lake. And we have to do something to address that intersection more than just a turn lane. I don't know if this, we can put the money into this and then we still have a problem.
This is a very dangerous.
This is one of those places in the county that we know we have to do something serious.
If it's appropriate, Ron's here. I was gonna.
Yeah, well, no,
I was
I
gonna ask Ron.
Well, I was gonna say, it's pretty interesting, you wanna put a roundabout at Otter and 3 Mile. I traveled that a lot, my son lived over there and I just don't see a need, but I look at what happens on North Long Lake Road. And, just to give you a little input, you all know we're still going through our master plan process. And we have the trailer park there that sits there that they've been zoned that they can't put anything there. And it's because it's local business, but at the last planning meeting Tuesday, they discussed adding more trailers or tiny home or multifamily home in that intersection. And then they discussed by our new fire barn that off of Manhattan, that's already multi or medium density. And so they're talking about adding to that because those are our park areas. We have parks there, so you add multi-density there. And then on the corner of East Long Lake at the south side, that's going to be more of a multifamily commercial zone there as well. So the growing's happening there, and something's got to be done.
How
And
far
so
is Suburban Drive from Long Lake?
Suburban is that trailer park.
It's the
right?
first, I know it's the first one. I'm just saying how much space, if, for example, we were to look at a different kind of configuration at that corner, can we make use of that corner without going any further than Suburban Drive, so to speak?
Well, the trailer park doesn't come off of,
Right.
it comes off on a.
I understand that, but that would give us space. We could configure North Long Lake Road. I'm sorry, North Long Lake, if I said east, I'm sorry, but
Yeah, so North Long Lake Road, I mean. there's-
because the hill on the south side of the road is just too steep to do anything. In engineering wise, I think it'd be a nightmare trying to use some of that space down in Moomers. And as far as level ground, the only level ground we have to work with is where those trailers sit.
Well, I think that's part of the concern the trailer park people have, or they call them coaches. That bought that now, they're trying to improve it, and that's some of the stuff they're looking at, is if we make them move them, they can't put them anyplace else. And so I think that's what the board is looking at, trying to determine if they can add more trailers in there so they can move them and do different things, if that's because we've talked to them about, they could lose that first row of trailers in there.
Right.
As they do that, and they're aware that Wayne may call them or somebody from the road commission may call them and talk about some of that transition to it. So I think they're open to it, and that's why we're trying to figure out how best to continue with our housing and around our park area and stuff like that. So you have schools that are right there.
No, I agree. I think we need to start working on plans a little bit more substantial than adding left lanes and right lanes.
At that location.
And yeah, and I mean, this is for this grant project, I understand that. But we need to start working on some more detailed plans on longer term solutions, because that is, to me, it's not gonna be the solution for that intersection.
Is this a possible roundabout location or it just never could be because of the geography of it?
Because the geometrics are currently out there, it'd be pretty tough to put a roundabout in there.
I mean, well, with enough money, you can do.
Yeah, true.
Right.
I mean, there are,
The RSA that Long Lake Township financed, one of their recommendations was a roundabout at there. You know, the whether a signalized intersection would be more cost effective versus a roundabout. You know, I think that certainly is, you know, up to debate. But roundabout or signalized intersection is something that was talked about and brought up in the road safety audit. With a signalized intersection, some additional, you know, turn lanes would need to be put into there in order to facilitate capacity of that intersection. So you're still dealing with right of way, and so we would still be impacting the coaches, the grocery store, you know, potentially movers there as well.
and one of the things they talked about with the signal though was coming out of by Twin Lakes. You're coming up that hill during the winter time with putting stoplights up there. It's hard to stop the traffic, and that's what we talked about
At East Long Lake.
At East Long Lake, and so it's how to keep that traffic flowing through there. And I know that the people are looking at that that property that's vacant there on that southeast corner. You know, they talked about leaving a section if they have to leave for frontage for, you know, for a roundabout, it ever comes to fruition out there or something that comes up there. So they're all talking about how to get that corridor better flowing. And
What's the space that's used? I mean, if you were to go on the full diameter that we actually have to occupy, that we use, for example, at the roundabout at River Road. And Keystone.
I believe our outside diameters of the lanes at River Road was 125 feet. So by the time you add in then snow storage capacity and that you're going to be well into 150 to 175 feet of the diameter.
So we probably own 66 foot there, correct?
We have statutory 60.
So what if, and I've kind of approached this before as a possibility. If we could treat it in a boulevard kind of way, you take the roundabout, you put it at East Long Lake where it meets North Long Lake. And then we route the traffic. Basically, if you're coming off a straight, you have to go down and make that turn at that particular location. I mean, have you thought about that at all?
We haven't entered into long range, you know, thinking like that. We've looked at some sketches and kind of have batted around a little bit about basically an elongated roundabout, if you will, on that. We've actually seen some and seen some photographs elsewhere on that there. We haven't necessarily gotten into that end of things. Quite frankly, we're really kind of excited about some strategic planning discussions so that we can be looking at where and how we want to be, you know, putting resources on that. That is something that could, you know, potentially work here, but it's not without substantial cost because right of way will be necessary.
Right, but the road safety audit has been done, correct? So
That's
the
right.
next step would be to take that road safety audit and start developing engineering options as to, and once you develop those engineering options, that's where we would end up getting the cost estimates for different options, correct? So if we first have to start the process to figure out what are the viable options from an engineering standpoint, and then based upon that, determine what are the viable cost options. And if right of way is involved, those discussions have to start now because that could take a certain amount of time. If we have, so my point is that we can talk more about it in the strategic session, but if the road safety audit has been done, we should start the next phase of the planning process. I mean, it is the problem and it needs to be resolved. So, you know, I mean, we can talk more about it, but that's my opinion.
Well, and he has to apply by May,
Right.
so that doesn't fit it into the strategic planning process.
Right, yeah.
This is leading to my question. Is this a shotgun kind of application or do you rank what you want or you're
that's why they
applying
did
for the grants? in
Well,
applying for this? How does
With,
this?
with support on these here, or if we see something that we want to pull off the table, we can pull those off. But otherwise, these are applications that would be submitted. They'd be each ranked on their own merit by MDOT on that. So
What's the pot of money that we're dealing with statewide? I mean, how much money is out there that, and how much can we expect to?
do you recall
I don't
seeing,
recall that. I know there was 750,000 per project last year. It's kind of based on the amount of money they have every year.
Okay.
During each year.
Okay.
So we would apply for safety grants for all these and then MDOT actually decides
that's
if we're gonna do
correct,
that project or not.
that's correct.
Now, can they partially fund, or, I mean, what I'm saying is, would they decide, hey, we'll partially fund this, or do they give you the amount that we're asking?
They could partially fund, that's not usually how their approach on that. They usually will look at these and either support it or not on that. And they try to max out so that the local agencies are, getting that amount that they have requested. 90%.
So this project is 900,000. So the maximum that project can get is 750? Is that how it works? Okay. And then so the remaining 150 is something, obviously, that road commission fits.
Correct.
Nice.
And if you start looking at doing roundabouts here, realize that we are not design engineers for roundabouts. We are not design engineers for any of these other figure eight. So we need to have a consultant come in and start looking at this and designing something. And that is not going to be a cheap, nor is it going to be a super quick turn. So the chances of us making it for a May submittal, if we're talking about roundabout, are pretty much almost non-existent.
Well, I mean, if
The submittal would just be basically like a basic concept sketch. It's not the full.
We're not, yeah, but we're not gonna know how much the total cost is or estimate is in May.
So we're just approving the list and then it's right up to MDOT.
But there's still some engineering that they're gonna spend time on, and this is something I actually, it's been kind of in the back of my mind, is it's like, before we spend 10 minutes in engineering, because your time is valuable and we have to prioritize, and that's why when this came up, I was really appreciative, actually. We need to know whether or not this board is on board. I mean, so, you say, oh, let's talk about a roundabout at, Silver Lake and Secor, for example. It's like, let's talk about it first before we start putting pen to paper. So I think it would behoove us if we have a timeline, if you're trying to make a timeline, if we kind of figure out where we lean, whether or not we're in general approval, whether or not we're willing to spend the additional monies, if in fact we are approved for these.
Do we traditionally receive some funding from this pot, or is this kind of a long shot?
No, we've, it's been a few years, and there's years that we apply for a number and years that we don't. With these types of projects, we're usually fairly successful. We're not necessarily gonna get them all. Maybe some of the bigger ones, anytime, and that's where Derek was talking about, when you hit that time of return, that 10-year really gets to be kind of the thing that if you're under 10 years on time of return, you rank really well. Frankly, it's if everyone in the state's throwing in projects, then it's harder. There's sometimes though that there's not a whole lot of projects that are being applied for.
So did you have a total amount if we said, yep, we're gonna do all these projects? What's the total amount back to us and we would be responsible for?
Did we tally that out?
Did not tally that up. I kind of.
About $1 million.
That's where I was kind of coming
Yeah.
in. If we had, Because if we're not gonna get
For
all
our
of them,
school,
but our
our
share is gonna be
share.
a little over 1 million
Yeah.
at least.
If everything happens, it's a perfect scenario.
Yeah, but the couple of those roundabouts could be potentially.
You know that,
And that's
and
where
this
it would
is-
change.
we went up $600,000 on the Potter at,
Well, we never had, yeah, they never approved us for full amount on that, but it went up substantially.
This is
6 million total.
And this is for fiscal year 26.
26.
Okay, so it's, some of them are on a 1 year, but I think these are all on a 3
Yeah, the
year.
bigger ones are usually on the 3-year. The systemic ones are basically just on, we can do this next year on that point.
And then to Jason's point, how much does engineering cost? They even apply for it.
Well, those roundabouts are pricey because, you know, we are, at that point, to apply for it, we don't necessarily have to have it, but unless you guys want to know what the true cost is, or at least an estimate of that cost, we need to start looking, especially this one. This is not just a 1 intersection problem. This is a 2 intersection problem. It's East Long and North Long and North Long and Straight. So you've got 2 intersections that we need to address.
can I ask the township supervisor a question here? What happened to the business development that was planned for that corner?
At this point, it's dead. The one that's, you're talking about, the Dollar General.
Dollar General.
That one's dead. We haven't heard anything about it. I've heard rumor that it's could end up down by Wheelock and Sons on that corner over there. Because he's selling that, so I've heard rumor that it could end up over there.
Well, I'll tell you, I look at all those projects and the only 2 that I find valuable are on the same corridor. That's at Long Lake.
It's the high school.
It's the high school.
Yeah, definitely the high school.
I mean, I live in the middle of most of these and I'm not sure I see like significant value for what it would cost the taxpayers, but Long Lake is one of the most important commute arteries in our county.
To the west, it's, yeah.
And then you throw all the schools that are on it and all of I know that there's housing coming up, but there's also housing. Those seem like really significant projects. And I think that not only do they provide value for the residents and business owners near it, but for all of the people in the county and our surrounding counties that use them to commute.
Yeah.
And the more impact you can get for the more residents with the projects that we do, I would think it would be beneficial to focus on them. I think that this project is something we would want to talk about prior to fiscal year 26 though, right? Or is that kind of a normal timeline?
Well, that's like if we're gonna apply for a grant, that's the year we're applying for grants on right now.
So is that something that you think is beneficial? Is that something that Long Lake Township thinks is beneficial? Or is this more of a project where we would put it in strategic planning and maybe address a different avenue and retain the application here for a different type of project? Is this project so special that it would be separate or something more in our strategic planning?
Well, it's a pot of money that if we can get $750,000, that would be hard to turn.
And you
down.
don't have to have a significant investment into the design and all of that.
Well, if we do, from what Brad is saying, is that if we go with the roundabout, how much detail do we need?
If you want an estimate, a true estimate, if you're saying, okay, it's $5 million for this. If you're saying that's okay, and you don't care about getting an estimate, we'd put the application in. If you're looking to get an estimate of what this is gonna cost, it's gonna cost some money from us to get somebody in here to look at it and evaluate it and tell us what type of roundabouts, because we definitely not got the skill in-house to design some sort of figure 8 looking roundabouts on both ends and a boulevard in the middle. It's just not what we are here. So you're talking about a consultant, bringing them in, having them review it. And there is still other possibilities that we might come up with this. There was a discussion at one point of moving the roads. You know, move that road over so that they line up. You know, there's other options that we could look at.
Right, like
And
in a
it's-
strategic planning
Right.
type process.
Yeah.
And when I made the comments, my comments were not necessarily geared towards amending this particular project to turn it into something else. My point was that we keep saying, well,
well, we don't know, we haven't done this, we need to start working on the engineering piece, we need to start working on the options piece as to whether roundabouts are the best option, whether realignment of North Long Lake Road or Straight Road is a different option, but we need to move forward on that thing. I'm not necessarily saying that this project needs to be amended to include all that detail.
And all these projects, except for maybe the roundabout, we would do the initial in-house, or do we do the roundabout in-house too? Does the staff already?
No, we are not designing roundabout.
So the 3 Mile one is the only one that we'd actually have to ask a consultant to come in for what you've presented today.
Correct.
3 Mile is the only one you'd have to ask a consultant to come in to do. Everything else can be done in-house.
Yes.
What does,
Signal
what does
modernization.
Long Lake
The signal
Township
modernization.
think about, like, you're doing a planning process right now, which is talking about your zoning map in that area.
Well, I think the big thing is that I think someone needs to make sure we're looking at the right picture. There may be some things that get done as a short-term fix, and then we deal with a long-term fix. I mean, it's like, none of the shoulders are paved that get people, and I'm still learning all these things, but if you're going south or west on North Long Lake Road, like going out of town, if you hit that top of the hill at East Long, it's not even paved shoulder to get around. You know, and there's no paved shoulder to turn right onto East Long. There's just, I mean, even it's doing something in some of those areas to interimly fix some of it, to get it so that, hey, this is our bigger picture, but this is what we're gonna do today to get people so they can get around cars if they're sitting there. Or is it simple pave the turn lane to get started? I don't think a paved turn lanes are gonna fix our problems in there, especially with all this traffic. I mean, we're not dealing with just Long Lake's traffic. We're dealing with Benzie County's traffic. We're dealing with Lake Ann coming through. We're dealing with all these people coming through town.
Right, barbed wire at the lake and at the Benzie border there.
We'll just put a toll road. Well, that's how.
Full road, right? We're talking about that now.
But I mean, and that's the thing is like, this is a main corridor, but you have to look at, eventually we're have to talk about Cedar Run and Gray Road.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing is that it's like, I guess I'm just saying, let's look at something, fix something temporarily.
Yeah.
But make the plan. What is the big plan? But what can we do? Because if you can't get funding for till 26, but you can't let it sit like this, because these houses are gonna start coming online. They're all approved previously, that we like talked about last month. But now we're talking about adding more housing in there because people need housing, but we're not putting apartment buildings up because they're not designed for those areas, but we could add a lot more homes in there.
What's our traffic numbers on Long Lake right now? What's our last recorded traffic numbers?
I don't have
I
that.
have to look at that. All right, say there was some up on there. But I'll tell you, it's like, you look at these roads and because we're doing all this managed plan. So, 1970, there was 1,900 people living in Long Lake Township. That road is the same road.
Right.
And our census was 9,950. Now we know that's well over that number in 2020 because we figure at least 10,000 plus. And so you look at that growth and they are the exact same road, resurfaced and maintained. I'm not complaining about that, but nothing's been done and we talked about capacity, but what do we got to do? And I just don't want to see bells hurt on that road.
And this is a fundamental thing that, we are looking here, we can't spend millage funds on any capacity improvements. So it all has to come out of Act 51 dollars, which also has to cover everything else that we're doing. So the nice thing is, yes, it is 2 years out, but when you get into that MPO status, there's going to be a lot of projects where we're evaluating corridors and addressing capacity. Yes, it's a couple years away, but at that point, with the volume that's out there, you're talking about like looking at Long Lake Road all the way from in town, all the way out, you're talking about 5 lanes potentially in town area. And then 3 lanes in a large swaths of Long Lake as you move out the rest of the way. So, you're talking those things though, those are grant opportunities for us once we are in MPO. We just don't have those opportunities to the degree that we will when that MPO takes effect.
In grant writing, and when the MPO happens, it opens up a Pandora's box, another Pandora's box of economic ability.
Yes.
And grant writing will become very important. and I believe we're gonna put that on strategic planning on how we're gonna handle grants.
Mhm.
But on this one, I mean, to move ahead, so we don't beat it to death. It's very logical to say, except for the roundabout, we can apply for these grants, do it all in-house with our staff for these grants. Is that a reasonable?
Yep, and the roundabout and the signal upgrade,
Signal upgrade, that's.
that one.
that's a minor-
Signal
that's a
upgrade,
small one,
pretty
yes.
important though,
That's
and
pretty.
not too much money.
And I know that one of the commissioners is always concerned about roundabouts and the cost of roundabouts. So I would actually entertain a motion to move ahead with these, except for the roundabout.
The Potter Road roundabout you're talking about?
Because it has an additional cost of an external, because these are every year, right, or every?
Yeah.
So we can always come back to that later.
The ones, I would
My
just,
wish, but you guys.
I would say no on the Zimmerman straightening, it doesn't make any sense to me. As far as, the back plates, I mean, I know it's cheap, but is it really necessary? People can see the lights. They can see the lights.
Not at night. So we had a signal outage.
You're gonna see the reflections and they're not gonna see the light shining?
So we had a signal outage.
Okay.
And that entire area was black.
Okay.
And so we had cars at 55 miles an hour flying through in multiple directions until we could get something out there on it. It is at nighttime, it's a small amount of money. Has huge paybacks of putting those back plates within the reflective strip at the edges.
Joe, this is something we should be addressing in our strategic planning. However, our engineering staff has taken some time to get this stuff ready. Almost the horse isn't ready here, but the only thing I didn't like was the Walton Road.
That's what I was looking at.
And the straightening and the roundabout. And I make a motion that we have the engineering department proceed with whatever you need to do, Derek, to keep moving on these, except for those 3 projects. That's my motion.
I'll support it. So that we can have discussion.
Well, the chairman's gonna talk here. The Walton Road one is a high grade concern in the southern part of the county. I mean, that was mentioned.
We've spent a lot of money down there, though.
I know we've spent a lot of money, but the unintended consequences is the accidents that are happening.
How many, is it our highest?
Yeah. What's the traffic? What are the accidents we're having?
What's the traffic? What kind of-
Angles, we've had, well, there's not a high number of angles, but the ones that have been, the angles have been serious.
Serious
Fatality and a couple serious injuries.
since we've improved the road.
So we're gonna have 125,000 of our own in this, assuming that the estimates are correct. Okay. All right.
That was one that did get brought up at Paradise
Oh, yeah.
Township.
Okay.
They were very concerned with the fact because they said, since the road's been fixed, it's become more of a problem because people are driving faster because the road's in better shape.
And more people travel. I travel it. If I'm coming into town, I have to go one side to the other. I use that as the ability to go east-west.
So Derek, the TOR on that Summit City project is 16.09. What are the chances that it will get even approved at that? Right, all right, so, I mean.
You want me to put that back? You want me to amend?
Yeah,
my-
you want me to
amend my
consider a
motion?
friendly amendment to your motion,
Sure.
and I'll support your, with the,
And the other one was Zimmerman and Fremont. That would be the only,
The ones that we pulled.
So no,
and
And do we want to look at doing this North Long Lake right now, or do we want to just pull this off and just
I-
actually do a?
I think we should,
complete
we
analysis?
need to move forward with something on
Yeah.
that. I mean, we can take a look at whether or not a light is gonna work, and if the lanes are necessary for the light option. Maybe that's what we do in the meantime. to get us
But when you had
to the
this,
next plan.
what you don't want us to do is get the grant and then not want to take it, right?
Perfect, exactly. That's why we're
We
here
don't
tonight.
know that we want to take this. It's too
Okay.
complicated there.
but this is this would be a temporary fix, right? Because, I mean, we still are going to move forward during a strategic session on all the other, the long.
Can I make a suggestion? Just to simplify this process to the chair, if you could just kind of develop it, go down the list,
And just get consensus from the board whether or not we want to move forward.
I actually had that idea, but I just would offer one suggestion. We've got all of these roads and intersections in our counties, and our staff chose these for a reason. It isn't just like out of the blue, they're like, I think we're gonna go to Zimmerman or Summit City.
Understood.
So I would be curious if Joe goes down the list, that maybe we knew the impetus of it, or how grave it was, or why it was on that list.
Some of them are pretty obvious. The first one.
I think Boomers is obvious and the high school is obvious, but I'm curious, like, I mean, I'm not saying we need to have a roundabout, but there's a reason you recommended a roundabout there. There's a reason to Summit
Right.
City, and I just kind of want to hear it with that, not just our opinions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Reflectors.
Yes.
No. I may yes.
Yeah, but yes.
Go ahead. 3 miles.
I would like to hear the reasoning behind it, like why it made this list and was important.
Because the angle, this was ranked, actually, I found it as well as MDOT did when they did our local safety initiative, where they looked at all of our intersections, all of our segments and ranks them based on the number of crashes they've had there. And there's been several angle crashes and some serious injury crashes there as part of the intersection.
So that rating is a primary criteria that you used in putting together this list.
Yes.
Okay.
How much traffic do you know?
I have,
With that in?
it's off the top of my head.
3 miles traffic. I mean, there's a lot of traffic there.
On 3 miles.
There's a lot.
And I do know some of the crash reports reference traffic's was backed up a long ways on Potter with some of the rear end crashes.
And there's no fatals there that I know.
No fatals, 1 injury.
There was a fatal a few years ago. One of our foreman's, his oldest son was killed at that intersection from a drunk driver.
This is the last 5 years.
Drunk driver. So there's an additional thing, but, so that's,
It's a dangerous
it
intersection.
is dangerous. Well, that's by my area, so trust me, I know.
We did have one type A, which is an incapacitating injury that required, hospitalization. So
And this 1.2 million doesn't take into account the additional cost of hiring an outside consultant engineer.
No, this is just construction.
That's.
Okay,
that's-
so it's another 600 grand.
Right,
Or the
that's,
fact that we have no idea what things will cost 3 years from now,
Right, that's
because
my-
if we're on the same path that we're on.
So
I'm
I would like to
disputing the
remove 3
value.
mile,
Yeah.
the 3 mile Potter roundabout
Yeah.
for now.
And I just have one more question. Why did you pick a roundabout instead of like a traffic signal there? Traffic signals are cheaper, right? So there's a
You have
reason.
rear end crashes already, and
Okay.
signals typically increase rear end crash.
Okay, so that would be your criteria in kind of making that decision.
Is there any additional stuff that we can do to make that safer without a roundabout?
A turn lane would be another option we could look at, a left turn lane to get the traffic out of the 3 lanes, turn on and off Potter, but
Next
still
round.
doesn't get solved the people being backed up on Potter trying to find a gap to get onto 3 miles.
And they all drive too fast, trust me. So we would prefer not to do that.
Yeah.
We're no.
Sound right?
Okay. The flattening slope.
Yeah.
Barns.
Barns.
Is it really?
Silver Lake, Silver Lake.
Oh, Silver Lake.
At Barnes.
Is there
Oh, we're
really-
talking about by Boone's,
Like booms.
the one by Boone's Restaurant?
From.
No,
Park to
By
Barnes.
the monastery.
YMCA.
That is a very bad intersection.
So we're working on the intersection. This is the
This is a
flattening
segment
slope
between-
between the Y and where we would do the intersection.
Okay, I'm not married to that.
Swixen by the monastery.
I'm a no on that.
Yeah, I'm not married to
Yeah, I'm
that.
not sure.
But that intersection.
Okay.
That's already in the works. so.
Yeah, that's a different.
I know,
Intersection,
that's exciting.
So the consensus is we really don't want to move ahead on that one.
No, I'm a no.
I would not make me be the
All right.
deciding factor.
The Zimmerman, I think, is pretty much we're lost right now.
I'd rather have it go towards the high school fence.
Let me ask the boards, if we're not interested in trying to realign the curves, would you be in support of us submitting for the high friction course?
Yes, the sticky stuff.
Oh. The what?
A high friction.
Oh, the chip seal kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Just strictly that and staying with the alignment, not
Yep.
altering the alignment.
Weekly.
Have a little bank there, you know, right?
Weekly, they slide off the road.
That makes a difference. That makes a big difference straight
Sunday
road.
afternoon coming out there.
And then we have,
Left
East
turn,
Long Lake
left turn.
Trail, Secor.
That's the one by Boone's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a.
It's 11.3, so it's
Is that Ron's subdivision or Ron's Township, right?
So the church is there, right? Is that?
The church is.
Yeah, that is over the 10, so the chances of.
Yeah.
Getting funded are probably lesser, right?
Probably lesser.
That's Kensington Church right there.
Yeah. So nobody has a problem with that one?
That's a reasonable ask.
It's not much and it's.
Yeah.
It's Summit City Walton,
It sounds like it's dangerous there.
we gotta take care of it, we gotta take care of it, if it's important to South County. Even though it's the 16, chances are. I know, yep.
Well, that's fine, we can apply, and
Just apply.
they will always tell us what reasons, you know,
But
we can.
that
then-
is unintended consequences of fixing the road.
Yes, it was.
Quite bluntly. Yeah. And then Long Lake and Straight.
Boomers. We have to identify by the businesses that are located. I want to do what would, and I don't have the knowledge that you guys have, but I want to make sure that we don't do something and waste staff time in all of this that would prevent something that we could do that would be better in the future. But if the staff thinks that this is worthwhile, then wouldn't it be better than not moving forward with anything at all? I don't know.
Once you apply for a grant, and we came up with something else that was similar to the safety grant, do they allow us to amend? Or we get pulled and have to go back in? Does that make sense?
So amend your treatment,
Well, if we move down this path and then 6 months, we realize, well, you know, it's probably better if we did this for safety. Will the state allow us to amend what we put in? Or does it just-
I have seen them in the past, if the change is of a higher safety value, I have seen them allow that.
So if we moved ahead with this and then in 6 months said, you know, it would be better if we did this, and did the engineering and said, you know, we think it'd be better if we did a roundabout or whatever, they would probably allow us to then amend this safety grant.
Yep, as long as we're amending that is going to provide a higher safety value.
I would assume they would consider that a higher.
I have seen that.
But the money would stay the same.
The money would stay the same, right, because they've already allocated those funds.
well, it doesn't matter, because we're gonna be at the maximum of what they're gonna allocate
Right.
here at.
750.
So, you know, and if we're talking, this could be, you know, if it's a massive thing, you could be effectively 2 roundabouts, a lot of right-of-way acquisition, a boulevard down the middle, you're probably 5 million for this whole thing. Or even moving the road's gonna cost that.
I probably can get that done as fast as this grant coming in 26 and getting that part done.
Yeah, anything's possible with the right amount of money, right, Wayne?
Well, right amount of resources.
I'm the supervisor, I'm looking at this board going, you know, I mean, that'll buy them some time, but then will they ever do anything? I mean, am I right?
Like I said, I think that even if you could take and pave some of those shoulders so people could pass around, I know you gotta get easements and right away.
Dangerous. I don't think that's in the Michigan Vehicle Code for you to just fly around someone on the shoulder.
But they already do it on the dirt road, the dirt shoulder.
Sounds like an enforcement issue.
So my question
We are
is,
getting a community police officer this
this
year.
particular project, is it, if we decide, let's just go with the roundabout option, is this going to be of no value at that? If we, or will
We
it still
don't-
retain
We
value?
really don't know, because we don't know what that solution is. Are we talking about moving the road? Are we talking about putting in some sort of figure 8 looking type traffic control device? If it's the right of way acquisition, it's gonna be needed either way. If we're gonna be talking about a roundabout, we have to acquire right of way. So at that point, you know, that cost is still there. And you're probably, you know, by the time we're looking at doing this, you're gonna be several years out beyond this, unless we can somehow find the funds to do this type of massive thing, or we start getting into that MPO and we can get some other grants.
I have a hard time letting go of $750,000 in the, because this is for not, it's for 2026.
Yeah.
A lot can happen.
That's why I asked, can we?
I think we move forward with
Yeah,
it
we
as
move-
is, and then if we can improve the, you know, as long as it's, you know, manageable at the time, or as long as it's amendable at the time.
But there's nothing to
Continue
say,
Be on our plan though, our strategic.
Yeah.
We're not just saying we're doing this.
and there's nothing to say that when that MPO comes in, that we have this sitting here for 2026, that we don't have another grant coming in to pay for more funds
Right.
to do additional things.
Yep.
And we've combined them.
So I have on mine that we're gonna pull 3 Mile Powder Roundabout. We would pull the Silver Lake Road slope flattening. And that we would modify Zimmerman Road to be high friction surface. And everything else we would go ahead with. Yep, that's what I have. And I have amend the motion to make that.
That's my motion.
And I'll support that motion. Okay. And this can be a voice vote, correct? Or do we have to do it because we're asking for money?
No, we're not asking for money.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it.
Just direction now. While we're here.
Thank you.
We spoke a little bit ago last month about, I want to say Beitner in the hills leading up to the Chums Corners intersection. And you said maybe, because there's some, my daughter-in-law was involved in an accident on there where everybody was stopped and the GFL driver had to make a decision to slide back down into the Elmer's train or go into a couple of cars. And he chose to slide back down into the Elmer's train because he thought people are not going to get hurt here. We're just going to have some property damage. Obviously, it was an excellent driver and he made a great choice. But you said maybe we could get a friction course on that. Are we too far ahead or too far out of that area? Are we going to do too much other work? We couldn't do that now because that stuff is happening on that little stretch all the time.
We were actually talking and we're putting together a list to put in for this year. It'll be a separate contract from our chip seal because it is there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's pretty much one contractor that does that kind of work. It's slightly different equipment, different materials. So we're putting together a list of locations that we want to address and put a contract out for high friction surface course. We've got, Derek, do you recall some of the areas we were talking, like on Garfield?
Rainier downhill coming into the signal.
Rainier down the hill here.
Some of the crew that want to run off somewhere.
Silver Lake.
Things of that nature.
Silver Lake.
You're going up the hill, Green Hill.
Okay, there we go. So there's different locations around that we'd like to be doing that, and so we'd be doing that.
July as well.
High Lake out here. So we'd like to kind of introduce that high friction surface course into part of what we're doing safety wise. And we wouldn't do them all in 1 year per se, but we'd start grabbing them, we'd start knocking them off and do that for a couple of years in a row. And we can really kind of, I think, make some dramatic differences. And Beitner Road right there, those hills would be another, a good candidate location.
Okay. Right, F. Managing Director.
I move we increase the manager's compensation by $3,500 a year.
Who supported, I'm sorry.
I did.
Okay.
Any discussion? I believe this is a roll call. Correct?
Lehman,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Chasm,
Yes.
Corn,
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes. This is item G. Amending the minutes. Send out cast.
So, basically, because of the difficulty of my ability to sign things on that signature thing, we had it signed off by others. We just need to have this included in the resolution or in the minutes that show that, yes, other people were authorized to sign this.
I make a motion to amend the minutes. That's 5-0, item G.
Support.
I believe this is a roll call vote. All those in favor? No, it's not a roll call vote. It's a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item D, policy discussion updates. H, sorry.
It's okay.
Filled it in.
It's okay. So, we're not actually looking for an approval yet. It's taking us a little longer to dig up some facts on this. But the biggest two things that we have right now that need to be addressed, and if we need to get the policy committee together, I think we need to do that fairly soon. But it's the purchasing policy and the vehicle usage policy. Currently, the problem is with the purchasing policy is the way it was set up. The majority of people here have like $1,000 or $1,500 purchasing authority on their own. And Dan can't buy a tire for the loader for that. So we want to bring these up in priority or move them up so that he can actually do that. So we need to sit down and set some realistic limits. In the past, it was always, everybody else was either 1,000 or 1,500. He might have been 2,000.
Can we qualify those limits? You know, so for example, if it's in the nature of an emergency equipment need to continue to, you know,
yeah,
whatever.
So the maximum that we have for equipment, materials, supplies, and something else, vehicles, is the maximum that can be approved outside of board activity is $15,000 by state statute. But there are things outside of that that the board has the authority to set limits on, which is why we need to get the board policy committee to sit down with us and look at it. Because if it's for something where we have an immediate need for construction, because like we had out on Silver Lake Road, it was going to be over anybody's purchasing authority. So I had to call each of the board members to say, hey, do you have any issue with this? Because it's going to be $100,000. We need to get moving on it because the roads, the culverts collapse. So we want to sit down and actually lay these out. So if it's for this, this is our purchasing levels. If it's for this, this is our purchasing levels. And sit down and look at what the actual job is of a require, what it's required. Because Dan's probably our largest purchaser, but then, you know, sometimes for our computer equipment, it might be $6,000 and they have nowhere near that. So they have to wait till I'm here because the next level below me is our finance director, which is $5,000. So we want to address these and kind of step them up. And then we've had other counties, we've looked into some other counties and they've addressed these purchasing things outside that 15,000 for just those specific items too. So
Perfect thing for a policy.
Yeah.
What was the last time a review was done, a policy review, a full policy review?
we're still working on that. That's why we had done all of the simple ones and we eliminated a huge portion of the simple ones. As a group, we all sat down, we put together like, I think we eliminated 35 or 40 policies that just don't need to be policies anymore.
So is this the first time a review is being done? of the policies?
Since, yeah, we're still working, going through it. This is the first time since it was, yeah, I mean, we stopped last spring pretty much because we kind of got held up on some things, but this start of this policy
Yeah.
review is the first time in the last 15 years.
That's what I was asking.
And I think when you're approaching those, whoever's working on the policy, and again, this is one of those things, where you're calling the members, I mean, that's not an official part of the policy or anything, but maybe that ought to be, you know, you get consensus from the board, and you literally record each of the answers, you know,
Yeah.
so that you have it as a matter of record.
Yeah. And so, and then the vehicle usage policy, I don't know why it's like this. I've heard different stories from different people. But I know that the original vehicle policy at the road commission allowed foremen and people on call to take the vehicle home, even if it went out of the county limits. At some point, it was set to restrict them to within the county limits. It's becoming harder and harder to get people to be able to afford to live within the county. And we need to address that and allow some of our foremen to be able to take it outside the county. I'm not saying, you know, 80 miles away. I'm saying like just outside.
How far is it to Jay's house?
Well, we were thinking
8 miles off the county line.
because
How many, Jay?
Eight.
Eight?
when the and then the reason why we're kind of looking at it as this 20-mile radius is, I don't know, for those of you who were around, if you remember when, like, places like the city of Detroit, you had to live in the city of Detroit. Well, that was found to be not an enforceable policy, but you could set limits on certain positions. And it was 20 miles that they agreed to. So we'd like to kind of work that in and to have a discussion of how that policy works, so that we can have our foreman able to take vehicles home instead of having to drive here to drive back out to the project. Yep, so we can, if we can get the committee, but I just want to make sure the whole board is aware of what we're talking about.
I mean, so we'll just coordinate with you and
So, yes.
and date that works for Lisa and I, and we'll meet with you.
Yeah, and work with Kylie to set up the
Yeah.
dates.
Yeah, I'll send out an
email.
email to the three of us.
I think we would need, County Roads Association will have the best practices under that. And
Yeah,
the
you probably
spreadsheet
will
of
have
all-
some.
And we've
then a
got-
spreadsheet of
and,
all the current policies and dates on it.
Pat's already taken done a lot of the research for us as far as, you know, how, because there's other things, when they take it home, they're taxed on the usage of the vehicle because it is a.
Right.
So there's that language that's in there too.
Yeah,
that
I don't
have
think we need to
address.
reinvent the wheel.
I'm
So,
sure
yeah.
CRA has
Yeah.
best practices and policies
Just
that
be
are.
cautious, some of the CRA stuff is.
We know, we won't try and pace, but yeah. Good start.
So,
Good, all right.
so I'd like to set that up
Yep.
as soon as possible for you guys.
Kylie, if you wanna send us, propose some dates and times to Lisa and I and see, and
Okay.
then we'll let you know.
And then all the other committees, if the folks on those committees want to chat with each other and see what they want to do.
We also need to meet next week about the building. So,
Yeah.
I know that.
because they want to go out to bid the following week. So we're making progress on it.
Okay, anything else on that? I is the
Per diem.
per diem, where we, quite honestly, last year, when we went through and we adjusted the salaries, the intent of the board was to tie our per diems to the County Board of Commissioners per diem. And looking at the minutes, we didn't see where we actually made the motion. Correct?
Yes.
And so I would entertain a motion that we set our per diems to match the County Board of Commissioners per diem.
Are we lower right now?
We are lower right now.
I'll make that.
I'll second it, but I asked the question, is it a meaningful number that we're gonna
Yeah, actually.
have to? Do we have to take a budget consideration because
I
of
don't
it?
believe so.
No, it's not that.
This is gonna be not a big deal.
And then from here forward, the per diems, unless the next board decides not to, will just automatically fluctuate with whatever the County Board of Commissioners does.
We don't go to nearly close to the number of
Meetings that the county commissioners go to, so the per diem is not gonna.
But for the new members, that was our intent. We just failed to actually do that motion. And I think this is a roll call, correct?
Okay, well,
You might as well make it that.
I'll make a roll
Yeah.
call.
Lisa. Gilman,
Yes.
Haslam,
yes.
Corn,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes. 7, managers' comments.
Okay, this is something I was gonna hopefully have actually on an agenda item, but I talked to John from Fairfield Township. He's all set. He's gonna do some brief interviews with a couple of the key staff people here to get some background and everything pulled together. The intent right now is to invite somebody from each of the townships because we deal with them also, as well as all of our supervisory staff. And then the rest of our staff, if they want to attend, can, but they are not required to come to this. And then the Board of Commissioners. So his preferred thing is a Friday because Garfield Township does not work on Fridays, but I don't know if that works for you. If it does, he's looking at March 3rd. If that's possible for you guys to meet that day.
But it's not possible for me.
Okay. So are Fridays bad or?
March, February 28th through the middle of March.
Okay. So is it possible to back it up 1 week from that? Because he said he might be able to do that 1 week earlier. But are you gone on that one? Wayne, when are you back?
Let's see here.
Strategic plan with the townships.
John is
I
independent.
am back Tuesday.
Because they are part of,
We're inviting them.
We're inviting them. I've also invited the general public if they want to come to town.
yeah, because we want to have these townships in there, because if there's concerns they have, we want to address it in the strategic planning session of how we're gonna address concerns. through the
This is just a
townships.
one-day thing, like. or
That's
you
the first day,
do-
and then he's gonna have to process it and write it up, get all the stuff out to everybody, and then have a short, like, half-day session to just kind of go over what it means.
You've
And
done a
then in the
strategic
second
planning
session,
with John before.
Where's the part where everybody puts a sticky note?
Right?
Is that,
that's day one.
okay, that's day one.
That's
The
the
sticky
sticky.
notes are day one.
Alright.
Okay.
And then the last thing is, after we've developed the kind of the strategic plan, you talk about your mission statement, your vision statement, your values. And we discuss if we want to have a change to anything and how it could be affected and how we want to do. As we move forward into this mass communication, at some point, we need to have a marketing person on board that can send us out basically and generate this entire package of how the road commission works, so that we can communicate better with everybody.
How about February 24th? Are you, does that work?
Goes for me.
I don't
That's
work
all.
on Fridays.
That's
It
Friday.
works for me. Friday, February 24th.
I make it.
Wayne, are you?
Uh, We don't fly back in until on the 27th, so I'll be back in here. on the 28th.
We can get his information.
Can we do this without?
Yeah, I think we
Okay,
can.
all right.
Without, it's more the board that I can't live without one of the board members. I gotta have you guys here to go through the whole thing and understand it.
So.
Is that here at the,
No, we're probably gonna do it at Networks Northwest.
okay, yeah.
Their conference building there right on Garfield Road, because it's got more space.
It's good. It's good.
It's got TVs everywhere, so,
If we can ever get it working right.
yeah. Well, they say they got them fixed, so we'll see.
It's been 2 days in a row, yeah.
February 24th, and you'll send us the time and.
Yeah, we'll get all that. I'll confirm with John in the morning. Well, no, he's off tomorrow, so Monday I'll confirm with him. And just so everybody knows, as a point of reference, when I believe it was the city that did their strategic planning, they spent almost $60,000 on a strategic planning session. And he's charging us a price not to exceed 5,000. So and that includes all the materials. And yeah, I've had great success with them. I've been into with them, so.
Ron, are you excited to come and talk about the Moomers intersection?
I'll be in St. John.
Oh, that's right. Because it's the day before Guns N' Roses.
Yep.
Yeah,
Send somebody from your board.
Oh, I will have said it.
I forgot.
Anything else?
That's it right now. It's been a quiet winter so far.
Commissioners' comments. I guess we'll start with that.
I appreciate the interaction with, and learning more about what we're doing going forward. I appreciate the staff's efforts for that. And I'm super glad we've got our third engineer hired. And
We still have one more. You got Wayne plus 2. We have.
right,
third
right, right.
coming.
But we have 3 now.
Yes.
We were at a point a little while ago where we had 1. The county's too big, the stuff is too complicated, it takes too much time. We are not doing the public a service if we can't move forward with projects.
Yes. Especially as we move into that MPO, there's a lot of money coming in and a lot of projects that need to be taken on.
Well, Happy New Year. And I'd like to address, actually, I'd like to backtrack just a second and make a motion to, traditionally, what we've done is when we've increased the manager's salary, we do it, if we do it later in the year, we do it retroactive to the beginning of the year. So I make that motion.
Oh, okay, I'll support it. But I supported the first one.
Probably should do roll calls just to be safe.
Yeah, oh, yeah, no,
Let's do a roll
absolutely.
call to be safe.
Chasm,
Yes.
Corn,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes. Thanks, Jason.
Other than that, I don't really have anything.
Thank you for catching that.
I just have a recommendation under the informational items, in addition to managers, comments, can we just have Wayne's report or something comment so that we don't have to, if we have questions regarding the engineer report, or if he can give us an update on that, like verbal one, it would be nice. So that when we are going to, if questions come up with township supervisors, we actually know the projects rather than reading that.
Right now, he comes to board meetings when he has things on the agenda. He's not here for everyone. If you're asking to make him be here every one, that's fine, but I would like to at least have notice. If not, if we can say, okay, if you guys have something coming up that you want, so that he knows if he has to be here or not. It's because if he's waiting till the end of the meeting, he's here for, well, 9:15, so let's say 8:15. If we could maybe move him to the front, it would be better if he doesn't have anything on the agenda, so he can get out the door.
I just think that it's nice. Sometimes there's reports, like I had to pull it up just to get more information, and if we can just get that, then that would obviate the need for.
Yeah, I just want to, like I say, if he doesn't have anything else to wait through the whole board meeting to the very end.
And if we are starting at 6, so.
Yeah, that'll make him out the door a little
We can
bit.
get him out of the door. Yeah, I don't have a problem.
You'll get home before 11.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no, that's fine with me.
Very
Be
good.
careful tonight. It's sloppy out there.
Yeah, a little speck there.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I have a lot to learn from you folks.
I'm only gonna say, as we get closer to the strategic planning, nothing is crazy, so bring everything to that meeting. Think about it, write it down. I mean, I know we continually talk about things like communications and what's that gonna look like. Are we gonna have a director of communications? Are we gonna do something there? Grant writing, are we gonna hire a grant writer? Are we gonna figure out what we're gonna do there? Because that's gonna become very, very, very important as you move into an MPO. And so make sure you bring those ideas with you and be ready to discuss.
And so, and if that is the case, based on some of the preliminaries, we are expecting that a grant writer should be generating between $4 and $6 million worth of grants for us every year.
Yeah,
So that will pay for them, plus, a couple other bodies of engineers that we need to take on these projects.
So just know that that's coming. I don't have anything else. Appreciate your agenda items, nothing. That leads us to our second public comment. Anybody have a comment?
I just have to say thank you for not taking your eyes off North Long Lake Road.
That's bad. So the next board meeting is they're the fourth Thursdays, not the last Thursday, the fourth Thursday. Right, okay.
6 o'clock.
It's 6 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock. I need to change that.
That makes me happy.
And that leads us to our last item, which is.
I'm sorry, yes, sorry, Pat, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Tell us a little about yourself.
I apologize. My apologies. I mean,
We had a nice chat the other day, so.
Well, I don't have anything to report yet, but I'm Pat Terry. I joined from private sector, hospitality, hotels, and resorts, and 30 years in finance and operations at hotels and resorts. So
All right, well, welcome, Pat.
Did you live here or did you move here to do this?
I've been here since 2002 when Great Wolf opened.
Okay, thank you. We're glad to have you. Thanks.
And
Motion to adjourn.
there you go.
So what do we do?